Yes guys, I'm Brad. Welcome back to the channel. Of course the Blades are playing tomorrow, so I've got another match preview for you. Of course the Blades travel down to Norwich on a Wednesday night. It's a long trip, fair play to fans that are going. As always with these match previews, I'm going to have a look at the previous game, of course that being West Brom game. And then I'll be looking at the form of the last 5 games of these two teams. Then I'm going to pick one player from each team that I think you should be looking out for, then I'll predict a starting 11 and scoreline. As always, if you enjoy this sort of content, leave the video a like, drop me a follow, big things coming on this channel soon. Of course, as we're getting towards the end of the season, I'll have reviews for the Championship and the Premier League, as well as the usual stuff such as team of seasons. And then of course going into the World Cup, there's going to be plenty of World Cup on the channel and on my TikTok and Instagram. So why on earth would you want to miss out? And if you don't want to miss out, subscribe to the channel and follow my TikTok and my Instagram. Looking back at Sheffield United's previous game, of course a 1-1 draw at home to West Bromwich Albion. And let's put one thing straight, it was a pretty forgettable game. The first half especially was absolutely awful. I think the highlight for me in that first half was us having a corner and then giving them a corner straight after. The ball went out to the edge of the box from the corner. Keanu, who had passed it back to keeper, was way too much power and it goes after their corner, which is always a sign of how the game's going really. Of course it took a George Campbell own goal to give the Blades the lead in the 53rd minute eventually. And then about 30 minutes later, George Campbell equalises, was an absolute pelter. And that's how the game finished, 1-1. It was a very boring game. And in terms of quality, it might be the worst I've seen in a long time. I think the worst thing to come out of that game is Gus Harman got his 10th yellow card of the season, which means they'll miss Norwich and Birmingham this week. I've done a video over on TikTok and Instagram about Gus Harman's discipline, but I think it is worth touching on again in this video, because as you can see on the screen here, he's picked up 4 yellow cards in the last 6 matches. And I'm not sure whether it's the Norwich or the Birmingham game, but that's a deadline for the 10th yellow card, which means if he got a couple less yellow cards over the season, then he might not matter for the 10th. But it's just so frustrating when he's picking up needless yellow cards all the time. Of course in the West Brom game, before a yellow card, he did get away with one on the far side. Right in front of away fans, he wiped out one at West Brom players. I thought we were going to give a foul, to be honest. And it was one of them, if he gives a foul so late into the game, he's got to give the yellow. But he somehow got away with it. Then in the 93rd minute, he got a yellow for arguing with the ref. And it's just so pointless because the ref's not going to overturn it, is he? In fairness, I did think Gus Harman had been fouled, not the other way around. But of course he was walking a tightrope, and of course you can't argue with the referee like that in the last minute. It's simple as he knows he's going to get the yellow, so why do it? But I think as a fan, frustration is the best word to describe about that game on Saturday. Now it's time to look at both sides' form coming into this match, starting with Norwich. Of course in the league, Norwich are on decent form, of course 4 wins out of the last 5. Their only loss being a 2-1 home defeat to Birmingham City. And since Philippe Clement took over as manager, they've been absolutely sensational. Of course they were looking destined for relegation under Liam Manning, but Philippe Clement come in and turned it around. They're now sitting 17th, about 10 points clear of the drop zone, no danger of going down at all. And winning spells like this definitely have helped them avoid the drop zone altogether. Of course the fixtures have been quite kind for him in the last 5 matches, such as Wednesday, Leicester, Oxford. But he's one of them, you've still got to go out there, win them games, get the 3 points. And they've been very professional about it, get that job done, get them 3 points in the bag every game, apart from that Birmingham one. And they seem to have a solid defence as well, keeping 4 clean sheets in that period. The only goals they have conceded is M2 to Birmingham in that loss. So I think it will be a tough match, trying to break them down. I think they will be doing well defensively. And with the form they're on, by no means this is an easy game. Moving on to Sheffield United's form now, of course on paper it looks decent, 3 wins, a loss and a draw. But I think these last 5 results have definitely summed up our season. We seem to be very inconsistent at times, this is why we aren't getting the playoffs. Because there's a few games you could pinpoint under Wilder where it's been quite dire. This isn't a criticism, it's been brilliant. I think he's the right man going forward for the club. I'm just saying these odd games when you're in that position at the start of the season, you have to be winning them. And unfortunately we haven't, so we're going to finish mid-table at the most. I think the playoffs is out of reach anyway, but that West Brom game is a massive opportunity miss. Of course West Brom was struggling near the bottom of the table, they barely picked 20 points on the road. So to put in a performance as poor as that against a team like that and get a 1-1 draw just isn't good enough. And some of the team selection has been quite poor at times, like Hoover Wisey starting twice in a row. It was quite poor against West Brom and it took to the 80th minute to take him off and bring Sariki on. Like them sort of decisions just don't make sense at all. And there's certain points in the season where you can pinpoint the difference between playoffs, so we're not under Wilder. I think them 2 games against Charlton and Southampton have cost us massively. Of course Charlton going down to 9 men before half time was just not good enough at all. And we shot ourselves in the foot really because Charlton aren't an awful side, but they're not brilliant either. And realistically with our team we should have been going there and getting 3 points. And then the Southampton game, they were in a bad run of form, we let them have the win. And it was just another poor performance on the road. It's been like that a few times this season. You could also go back to October for that Preston game where we were 2-0 up and we bottled it. I think when you come into a team 6 games into the season, bottom of the league, if you want to get playoffs, you need to win in games like that. And when you're that far behind, it's them small margins that can cost you. Overall though, I think the season is done. I think we just need to build towards next season. And we've got to hope with the right reinforcements this summer we can be up for promotion next year. Now it's time to look at one player from each team you should be watching out for, starting with Norwich. And for Norwich, I've got the ever-present Kenny McLean. He's been absolutely brilliant this season. I mean, to say he's 34, he's still putting in some brilliant performances in the middle of that park. He's a very experienced player, he's been there, he's done that at this level and the level above. And in the Championship, the last time he got below a 7 rating was the 29th of December. Since then he's played 10 full 90s and 84 minutes. And in them 11 games he's got a 7 or above rating in all of them. Starting off with his passing stats, they're unbelievable. He's got 5.55 expected assists, which is the 95th percentile. And then successful passes is one of the best in the league in terms of midfielders, 1,463. And that puts him in the 96th percentile. I think it's his range of passing as well, of course, 118 long balls, that's in the 100th percentile. He's in the 93rd percentile for chances created with 44. And of them 44, 10 are big chances, which is 98th percentile. He's also made 39 successful crosses, which is in 96th percentile. And overall this season his passing has been brilliant, long or short. He's also a very solid midfielder midfielder in possession, as you can see by the stats here. He's won 162 duels, which is in the 95th percentile, and he's also in the 92nd percentile for successful dribble rate with 68%. He's made a whopping 2,368 touches, which is in the 97th percentile, and surprisingly, he's won 53 fouls in the middle of the park, which is also in the 97th percentile. He's also decent at defending as well as attacking, as you can see by the stats here. He's made 59 tackles, which is 89th percentile. He's blocked 12 shots, which is also 89th percentile. He's made a whopping 159 recoveries, which is in the 94th percentile, and he's also in the 94th percentile for clearances with 58. Overall, he's been a brilliant servant to Norwich and a key cog as to why they've done so well again this season. And like I just mentioned, he's been a real positive in their upturn of form. For United, I think we need a strong defence against Norwich, so I've gone for Tanganga. I think the partnership of Tanganga and Bindon have been brilliant recently, and I want to have a look at Tanganga and some of his stats. Of course, at the start of the season when results were quite poor, still he's still brilliant at the back, and I think some of these stats definitely highlight that. There's one stat I want to highlight in passing, which is successful passes. He's quite comfortable on the ball, making 1,236 passes, and that puts him in the 83rd percentile, which for a centre-back isn't bad. But the possession stats and the defending stats is what I want to focus on. Because starting off with possession, he's a very dominant player in the air and on the ground. He's won 202 duels, which is in the 92nd percentile, and 135 aerial duels, also in the 92nd percentile. He's won 62% of his ground duels and 67% of his aerial duels, which I don't think is too bad for a centre-back, especially at the start of the season when we were quite a poor team, obviously not seeing much of the ball. He's very comfortable on the ball, taking 2,061 touches, and that puts him in the 86th percentile for that start. And surprisingly, of them touches, 52 in the opposition box was in the 90th percentile. Moving on to defending now, some stats definitely stand out here. He's made 42 interceptions, which is in the 92nd percentile, as well as 29 block shots, which is also in the 92nd percentile. He's quite a disciplined player as well, only committing 36 fouls, which is in the 95th percentile. He's also made 102 recoveries and 202 clearances. Overall, like I mentioned, Norwich are a decent threat going forward, so I think we need a strong defence. And I think that settled back line of Tanganga and Bindon definitely gives us that stability. And I think at times this season, Tanganga has gone under the radar. Of course, to finish this video off, let's have a look at who I think will start and what the scoreline will be. To be fair, this week I think the team definitely picks itself, starting off with Adam Davies in the net. I've got to say, I'm one of Davies' biggest critics, but also fair, I'll give him praise when it's due. And I've got to say, he was quite solid against West Brom. He couldn't have done much for a goal. He made a couple of decent saves. Yes, he was a bit flappy, but I don't think he was too bad overall. I think he definitely kept it in the game, if anything. And you've got to be fair with players. When you criticise them when they're bad, you've got to praise them when they're good. I'm still not happy about him being number one for the rest of the season, but I'll give him praise when it's due. At right back, I think it's a must that Siriki has to come back into this team. I mean, Hoover, especially against West Brom, was quite poor. Siriki definitely needs to come back in much better. I mean, it's night and day between the two. Of course, Hoover wants to go back every time, whereas Siriki wants to go forward. And I think Siriki, despite being a right back, offers so much to the team defending and attacking. So I think whenever he's fit, we've got to play to develop him and try and get him to the best he can be. Because on that right side, especially him and Brooks just work so well compared to Hoover and Brooks. At right centre back is the aforementioned Japhet Tanganga. I think he's been a bit wobbly the last few games. Has some decent games, has some not so good games. But I think as a whole throughout the season, he's been quite solid at the back. And like I mentioned, we're looking to him to have a strong defence against Norwich because they are decent going forward. And I think he's definitely one next year, so get a bit of momentum and get a better team. I think he'll thrive because he's such a solid centre back for this level and definitely deserves to be in a team pushing for promotion. Of course, next to him is Tyler Bindon. I can't see him bringing him out for this match. I've got to say he had a solid performance against West Brom. He's getting better every week, in my opinion. And his attitude as well as amazing. Being left out in the cold, getting on with it, being back in the team. And he certainly took his chance when he came on at half time against Stoke, and coming forward he's been better and better. He seems really settled this, so it's really intriguing if we're going for him in the summer. I can't see him costing us too much. I think especially if Nottingham Forest stay in the Premier League, he's not needed there. It'll be interesting to see if we go for him or see if we can do better. At left back, there's not much choice. Of course, it's Harrison Burrows. He could bring Hjelde in at some point, but I think for now it's Burrows starting at left back. Of course, over the last few weeks, he's looked more like himself last season than he has this season. He's got a couple of assists to his name in his last few matches. He's been brilliant down that left-hand side. And when he's on form, he's one of the best left backs in the league. Obviously, he's not shown that form a lot this season. But of course, we all know his qualities, especially attacking, going forward with the ball. And something like that with his crossing could be crucial to us getting a victory here. I think he'll carry on in this 4-4-2 system, so it's going to be Brooks on the right-hand side. He's another player getting better and better every week, isn't he? It wasn't his best performance against West Brom, he was still alright. Of course, had some brilliant performances before that. And he just seems to be growing in confidence every week, trying something new, a bit different. And I think he's taking more risks and timing shots better than he did at the start of the season and last season. I think he's getting that experience, that know-how when going forward. And I think if we keep hold of him in the summer, he's a massive player in our promotion push next year if we have one. The first centre mid is the brilliant Sidney Peck, and he's been one of our better players this season despite a shaky start. I'd say since about November, December time, he's been our best player, so dominant in that midfield. And the last few weeks, especially against Wednesday, against QPR, has been absolutely amazing. And I've got to say, it's another solid performance against West Brom. He didn't do too much wrong. And in that midfield, he just drives us forward with his range of passing. And I think he especially thrives when he's got Riedewald next to him. And speaking of Riedewald, he's the second centre mid in this team. Of course, returning from injury, got 72 minutes against West Brom. I think if he didn't have a yellow card, he probably could play longer, but I think he brought him off to be cautious. But I do fully expect him to start again in this match against Norwich. And like I mentioned, he complements Sidney Peck's game so well. Of course, he's the anchor in that midfield, that defensive-minded midfielder. Of course, Sidney Peck does some defensive work as well, but he's mainly Riedewald. And I got to say, I think he was our best player against West Brom today. He looks so calm on the ball, and he can really set the tempo whether we want to go fast or slow in that midfield. And I reckon in that midfield with Peck, I think he's one to build around. And like I mentioned, in that midfield, his presence is so calming because sometimes it's chaotic. But like I mentioned, in that midfield, he's that defensive presence. Of course, Gustavo Harmer is suspended for this game, so I think it was Callum O'Hare on the left. Of course, in November, December time, when Harmer was injured, of course, O'Hare would play on the left. And he did really well in that role, of course, getting a few goals and assists along the way. I thought he was solid against West Brom, to be fair, got into some decent positions. And I think in away games, like I always say, you need the energy in that midfield. I think he gives you exactly that. He's having a brilliant season, of course, 14 goal involvements, 9 goals, 5 assists. And he'll be definitely looking to add to that tally against Norwich. I think the first striker will be Tyrese Campbell. He wasn't too bad when he came in against West Brom. I thought he could have done better. But I think starting this next game with a striking partner could be definitely beneficial for him. Of course, he broke his goal drought against QPR with a brilliant finish. And surely now we'll be looking for a few more before the end of the season. I mean, we all know how good he can be on his day, but he just hasn't really shown it this season, has he? But like I mentioned, with a striking partner alongside him, I think he'll do better. And alongside Campbell, I think as long as he's fit, it's Patrick Bamford. Of course, he went off injured at half-time against West Brom, but apparently it's only a dead leg. So all being well, he should be back in the squad for Norwich, should be starting again. But you never know, it could be Cannon instead of Bamford if he is still injured. But I think the qualities that Bamford brings to the team is so vital. Of course, it's a different sort of profile to Campbell. Of course, he likes to hold the ball up, but he's also in the right position to get the goal all the time. Of course, 8 goals in the Championship so far. And like I mentioned, our upturning form definitely started when we signed him in November. And I'm sure against his former club Norwich, he'll be looking to add to his goal tally. And there we go, guys, that's my start 11 to face Norwich City. I'm unsure as to what this game will be like. I think we're quite tight, quite tough. Of course, despite losing the FA Cup, they've been on solid form in the league recently. It's a tough one to call, but I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I think O'Hare and Campbell will score the goals, but will ultimately only get us a point. And there we go, guys, that's my full preview for Norwich City versus Sheffield United. As always, if you enjoy show content and other football content, leave the video a like, subscribe to the channel. And if you're not following my TikTok or my Instagram, go follow them, links in the caption. Of course, I post anything football and football shirt related over on there, so go check them out. And if you're a Blades fan, let me know what you think the score is going to be in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.